The following program is a Nighthawk Network presentation.
What's going on, good people? It is your guy, the man, with the plan to discuss what we need to talk about this evening. This is I Am Nighthawk. I am E-Buck the Nighthawk. And yeah, today we are going to discuss some of what we talked about last week. We're going to give you some updates on it and give you a different take. If you notice my scene in the background, it will make sense once I get to that part of the discussion. But first and foremost, let me say thank God. Thank God I am feeling much better than I did last time I was on. Whatever illness I had, thank God it is no longer with me. I am back, full voice and all. Definitely need a haircut though. But beyond the realm of that, I am feeling better. Thank you for your prayers and understandings in those matters. We are back ready to discuss with you. This, of course, is the I Am Nighthawk show where I talk about the things that I think about while many of you are asleep. I mean, like literally sleep. And I've been thinking a lot about a couple of these topics today because it's been bothering me, especially the one that we'll get into a little bit later. But first, want to talk about the latest thing going on with this whole government process and this latest debacle that is the second term of the 47th president. We are discussing, of course, the latest thing that has transpired down the pipe where many of the government employees were sent an email this weekend saying that, yeah, we need to know 5 things that you've done last week at your job. And if we don't get that information by Monday midnight, yeah, you may not have no job. We might have to get rid of that ass, okay? Now, understand, like I said last week, I don't have a big issue with them wanting to streamline government to cut out some of the stuff that is not necessary, okay? We all feel, I think, that government is not completely doing its total job, and some of the stuff that government does is not needed. It's the way in which they're going about it that many of us have issue with, or at least should have issue with. When one day it's like, you know what? That little group over there, fire everybody. But why? Don't worry about why. We'll worry about why later. Just fire him. Yeah, that group right there put all their money on hold. But yeah, don't worry about but right now. Just do it. There is definitely better ways of doing what's being done now. Okay. From what my understanding is based on certain news outlets that I've seen, there was a time during the Clinton administration where something not quite this extreme, but something close to this was being done in the government where they were looking at different government agencies and seeing where they could trim the fat. Right now, it seems like they are doing more than trimming fat. They trimming everything, fat, muscle, bone, the whole deal. They doing too much. And then, of course, the president goes on to say last weekend that, yeah, not only am I liking what Elon Musk is doing with the Doge Department, the Department of Government Efficiency, but I want him to go even further, do even more. He can do more. That is crazy to think about. That is crazy as it has been these last 30 days with some of this. He wants him to go even farther still. Okay? But let's get back to this, the issue in and of itself. Here you are at your job. You receive an email, and just kind of relate this to whether you work in the government or not. Lord knows if anybody's out there working at one of these government jobs and have received this email, by all means, please chime in. We definitely want to hear from you, especially if you find yourself in this predicament. But imagine you are at your job And not the boss, mind you, not even the boss's boss, basically the corporation, the head honcho, sends an email saying, okay, we need 5 things you did last week that make your job worthy of still being your job. And we need that information by 12 midnight. Okay. Now understand, me myself, I relate this to my personal life. I've worked at over 75 different places in my life. Okay. Now understand, I did work a couple years as a temp, so that does count into that number. But ultimately, I worked at several places. I've been everything from a janitor to the boss, okay? The head honcho himself. Now, depending on what the scenario was and what was going on, I would like to say the vast majority of every job I've had over the years, I could answer that question in whatever email, and you would see that, yeah, I am a vital part of whatever is going on in that moment at that job. Okay. I would like to think of all the employees that were sent that crazy email last week, the majority of them are in that same situation. Yet I am vital. This is what I did. Understand it. Okay. But okay, let's dig a little deeper. All right, let's just say your job's the type of job where one week what you do is vitally important. Like, say you are a bookkeeper of some sort, and that particular week is the week where you add up all the numbers and whatnot, and you're the main person in charge of doing that. That is your primary job at the job. So that week, you have a lot to report in terms of what you did. But then let's just say the following week, you don't have to do anything but like kind of oversee what you did the week before. So you didn't do quite as much. But this is the week they want the information. Now, do they, based on what you did this actual week, say, okay, well, last week all you did was oversee what you did the week before and look over numbers. It didn't take you all week to do that. We don't need you. You up out of here. So part of what I'm asking is, who even determines this, okay? Who even decides, okay, this is the information we got from this person. Yeah, this don't look like they doing too much. We can get rid of them. Okay? Jobs vary. Okay? Situations vary from job to job. Some jobs are to where if that person, that one particular person don't show up and do their job, the whole job is messed up. Some jobs do work that way. Okay? Particularly if you're the boss, if you that week decide not to show up, or hell, even if you was on vacation last week, it changes how that job is ran and operated, okay? You can't necessarily convey all of that in a simple email. Some places, your job is to do one specific thing, and it's not always something that you need to do every single day. It may be something you only do once a week at the job. It may be something that you only do once a month at the job. And the rest of the time, you're being compensated for what you do on that particular day or week. So that, yeah, you're still getting paid like an employee that's working that week, but in actuality, you're just there as a safeguard, or okay, this is what happened. We need you here just in case, blah, blah, blah. Say you're like an inspector, for instance, and your job is just basically to watch the machines to make sure nothing goes bad. And that week, nothing went bad. So all you basically did was sit there and watch the machine. Do you have 5 bullet points to give them based on that? Does that mean, okay, yeah, we got to let you go because you didn't really do nothing last week? What are we basing these decisions upon? Because according to what we know of the email that I know of, that is not clear. Okay. And then, okay, let's just say everybody passes this so-called test of what they're doing this week. Who's to say you can't up and decide 2-3 weeks from now, okay, let's do this again? Or let's just keep doing this every other week till we figure out who we don't want here. My concern is this. We are firing these people, and we fired, well, not we, I had to do it, but they have fired 10,000 plus people so far. in these 30 days based on not much of much, okay? The crazy part is not only have they fired some of these people, but then after realizing what these people actually do, had to go back and hire them back. Realizing, oh, we messed up. We actually do need these people. Is this the pattern we about to go through for the next 6 months, year, 4 years? Do all government employees have to sit there on eggshells, wondering, okay, when they're going to send this next crazy email, what they going to want to know next? Are they going to want to put cameras everywhere I go? Who knows what mess they may come up with if the president is saying, okay, he's doing all right, but he ain't went far enough. This is already a point too far as some of us is concerned. What's up with this? Now, some people say it's part of the end game. And in the end game of it all, what it really boils down to is we want you to quit. And we're going to figure out different ways to harass you and pester you till you get to a point where you just don't want to be bothered no more and go ahead and let it loose. Okay? Remember, they already put that offer on the table. Okay, if you want to resign, we can set you up for 6 months, whatever. And keep in mind, from my understanding, that deal on the table for some, but they still haven't figured out a way where that's actually going to get paid for and whatnot. It's a mess right now, people. Nobody wants this type of stress going on at their job or in this country. We supposed to be the most sophisticated, most powerful, most money dominant country on the planet, and the way we're running this right now is crazy. And of course, then there's the tariffs and all this going on. How they want to set up, get rid of the two wars. It's a mess. Please keep watching. Check out your trusted news sources. Do your research. It's a lot going on right now. If you're not keeping up and suddenly you find yourself on the other end of a crazy email, something like that, this is something you need to know is going to transpire. Okay? That's all I really got to say on that subject. I really want to get to what I really want to talk about this evening, which is the situations going on with the children. In particular, the case that we talked about last week about the person in Pontiac and her abandoning her children. You can go back to last week's episode and get the general basis of what happened. We do have some updates and some clarifications, but we really need to talk about how we got here. That is why, if you notice the background, let me let you see the background fully here. This is created by AI, of course, a tribal council of the village. And all those seats are where we sit our people of the village so we can sit and have a discussion. So tonight's discussion here in the village that I have set up for you is what happened to the village in this situation. Where is the village now in any of these situations, for that matter? Okay. Now remember, we had a couple cases here in the local area. There was this situation with the Pontiac lady. Then, of course, a couple weeks before, there was the situation with the young lady who had the two children who died in the car overnight, freezing to death and what have you. Okay, the update on that is they did have the funeral for those children. It was private ceremony, and they have set up the children a GoFundMe account, and they have been getting them help and whatnot, and things are better in that situation. There are some rumors that the mother was seen partying and whatnot recently. I can't really confirm that, so I'm not gonna go that far, but yeah, it's still some things to talk about in that scenario. Part of that village is definitely missing in that equation. But we're really gonna focus on this scenario here, okay? Now, if you didn't watch last week's episode, we talked about the person in Pontiac who abandoned her three children in an apartment for years at a time and left them in squalor to fend for themselves. and only occasionally brought them things to eat. Okay. There was a lot missing from this story, we felt like, not to mention the fact that last week when I was talking about it, I was having trouble communicating how I really felt because I still was kind of sick and I still was kind of grasping at what I wanted to say. But in essence, what I am saying is, in this case, the village has failed. The village has failed. This is what I'm telling us, the village, right now. When it comes to this scenario, the village failed these young people. Now, there is other updates, and we will have that discussion as well. But first, let me get to a couple of the videos, and then we can discuss. This one talks about a couple days after the children were found and the condition of the house and what a particular neighbor had to say. Let's watch this video, and then we'll discuss.
The investigation continues into Kelly Bryant, the woman accused of abandoning her children for years. In the meantime, crews have started the long process of cleaning out that townhome that those children were in. CBS News Detroit's Heath Kalb is in Pontiac asking neighbors about this case and the cleanup ahead.
Well, I spoke to some of the people who were tasked with cleaning out this townhome behind me, and they told me they've never seen anything like it before.
There was feces everywhere. Everywhere on the walls, wiped on the walls. The toilet was like filled up this much.
Cleaners spent all day Friday inside of the townhome on Lydia Lane in Pontiac, where the Oakland County Sheriff's Office says 3 children spent almost every single second inside of for over 4 years while they were abandoned from their mother. And the condition the residence was in is what Sheriff Michael Bouchard describes as deplorable.
I never seen nothing like this before. You know, how could someone do something to kids like that? Treat them just like a dog, you know, it's just terrible.
I spoke to a woman who lives about 10 doors down in the same complex, who told me she's still in shock, and that after living in foster care herself, she's astonished these 3 children were allegedly abandoned for so long without anyone finding out.
It's tragic, it really is. It's been about 4 years, so they were a lot younger when this started, and just the fact that their mom shows up once a week to give them a little bit of food with no hygiene products or anything, it's going to have a lot of long-term, lasting effects on them, and it stinks.
Lovegrove also mentioned the confusion herself, much like many others are feeling, about how the neighbors that shared walls with the abandoned children didn't smell or notice anything off.
Honestly, something like that's going to penetrate. I smell sometimes people cooking in their own places. So the fact that their neighbors didn't notice anything, there were no kind of rodent problem or anything that they were noticing, is very shocking.
Bryant is now being detained on a $250 million cash bond. For now, here in
It's like every time I hear any parts of the story, I instantly get upset. I mean, first of all, we're talking about how the village failed these kids. First and foremost, the head person who has failed these children, obviously, is that piece of for a mom. I'm gonna try to keep the profanity low here, but yeah, this is kind of one of them cases where it calls for this deserves whatever bad whatever happened to him. I mean, keep in mind, as I've grown older, I try to stay away from the word hate because hate is a very, very strong emotion that you try not to put on anybody. And I can't say I hate this person, but I most definitely hate her actions in regards to these children. I can say that much. The fact that you had these kids, and at the time that they were abandoned, according to all reports, which was around 2020, during the pandemic, no less. Okay, let's go there. During a time where it was such uncertainty in the world that nobody was even supposed to be out and about at all. And during that time of confusion, when your children at that point, according to the age setup, were 8 and 10 years old, you left these children to fend for themselves during a pandemic where There was no certainty of anything, okay? Now, the understanding is that at that point, you dropped off some stuff. You then dropped off food on occasion. And it would be something where it got to the point it was something as trifling as a loaf of bread for 3 children to share for 4 days or a week at a time. Okay? That is not how you treat human beings. Hell, that's not even how you treat animals, okay? That in and of itself is foul. Then you allow a house that you continue to pay the rent for years, mind you, until you stop paying, mind you. So here it is this whole time you got these kids in this house where the trash is piling up, where the hygiene level of the house is getting worse by the day, where it got to the point to where the actual toilet in the house no longer worked and was full of feces. Literal. That in and of itself, not healthy. Remember, it's actual toxins from one's body that your body has excremented out into the outdoors. So here you are with 3 young kids sitting in a house full of and trash and filth that piled up to the point where there were literally piles upon piles of trash. I wanted to show the video of it itself. If you actually go on TikTok, I'm going to try to find a couple of videos that there was like the people that actually went in and first cleaned the house posted. So you can see that, just how filthy it actually was on the inside of that house. No human being or animal, domestic or wild, should have lived under those conditions at all. Bottom line, the mother definitely failed them. She is locked up on $250 million bail, and that's exactly where she should be. And if there's actually somebody that's even considering helping her pay that and get out, what the hell wrong with you? Let that ass rot. Just like she left them children to rot. Mm-mm. The B word just ain't even strong enough, okay? She is filth. She herself is a piece of filth. Okay? Now, the question that we all asked after that was, okay, it takes 2 people to make a human. We know what the mama was about, apparently, living her best life while she left them kids there to squat and waller. Where was Pops? Where was Dad? We do have some information on that we'll show later, because did not know that until I got this information. Because at that point, I was like, okay, wherever he is, he should be rotting too. Well, we'll get to that video in a minute. But yeah, clearly that person failed them as well. That part of the village failed them. Okay, so that's just them too. Understand, these children also have a parent, both mom and dad, that have siblings. In other words, they had aunties and uncles. Where were they? Where were they? Apparently, they talked to a couple of these folks and they said, okay, whenever they asked about the children, they were told they were at the babysitters or whatever, or they were with their father. Lies, okay? Just straight up lies. Bottom line is, okay, I'm an uncle, okay? Not a parent, but an uncle. Even though I worked all the time and all of that, I know if I needed to go see my kids, my nieces, they wasn't hard for me to find, okay? And I at least inquired, okay, what's going on with them? Put somebody on the phone, blase, please, Christmas time, I got a little something on, that type of stuff. So I know they're around. And if I ain't around, then I at least know, okay, well, I know they grandma done synced them, or their mama done synced them, or their auntie, what have you. There are people in this village that we got here in the background. Where were they? Okay. Should they have just accepted the explanation that the mother was giving them? They was here and not seen them for years at a time. And these are young kids, people 9, 10, 11, 12 years old when all this started, okay? Why we ain't seen them since the pandemic? So yes, I still feel they failed them as well. Okay, we got a comment here. Ro checking in. Okay, Ro, what's going on? Two things. One, Ro has definitely commented on these things. I didn't have time to set it up, but if you go, and let me look this up for y'all right quick. If you go to Spotify, my friends, and please do, you are going to look up the following. The name of the podcast is called Speaking Freely with Miss Gigo. Okay, let me type that in for y'all so y'all know where to find it. That is Road to Stardom's new podcast where she discusses things like this and many other subjects also. I want y'all to not only go there and check out some of her comments in regards to some of the things we're talking about, because she did speak on a couple of these subjects, but also support her by liking and subscribing. We would appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much. Again, the name of the podcast is Speaking Freely with Miss Giga, IGO, okay, on Spotify. You go there. It is her daily mini podcast. I do have one also. It is called Listen to Your Uncle E. The newest episode will probably go on tonight or tomorrow. It's entitled Seasons Change and People Do Too. All right. Hold on, good people. There we go, right here. You may find her again at Speaking Freely with Miss Gigo on Spotify. She talks about this subject that we're actually talking about. The one of the episodes in which she discussed it is entitled, hold on. Let's see. Oh yeah, you should be ashamed of yourself. That is one of the episodes that she talked about this particular subject, and I think it's another one as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ro. And also, Ro, I did leave the link for this episode also in your Gmail account. If you would like to come on and say a few words in regards to this subject live now, the invite has been sent. Feel free to pop on in. You can stay on audio if you like, and we can discuss. Also, I sent that link to you, Big Meech, and also to you, Aunt Nikki. So if you guys are watching this live right now, you want to chime on in, by all means, come on in. We can sit here at the doggone the site I got for the village, and we can have a nice village discussion about the things. But anybody else, if you want to chime in, I do have the Facebook on so I can see your comments on there. We're also on Instagram this evening. I cannot see the Instagram comments, unfortunately, but if you go to my YouTube page, which is Eric Butler Nighthawk Network Detroit, you can chime in there live, and I can not only see those comments, but I can post them on the show as well. Okay, back to the subject. So, like I said, the mama failed, father failed, aunts and uncles failed. Okay, there are other people at blame here. Again, going back to the video I showed where the young lady was like, yeah, the neighbors that live next to them, they didn't see nothing, they didn't smell what was going on in that house. Think about it. A house full of, and you live next door to it in an apartment complex where the walls are usually kind of thin. You had to smell something. Understand this whole age of wanting to mind your business and not be a kin or a kin and all that, but if all that's going on in that house, I'm sure next door smelled just as bad as that. Not to mention, if you got all that mounds and mounds of trash and stuff in that house, ain't no type of infestation jumped off in there. Boy, you ain't got no ant problem, roach problem, Mickey problem, none of that. That would not concern you enough to be like, okay, what's going on next door? All of a sudden, I got all this going on. I know when we had some filthy folks living next door, we started to have some of those issues, and we knew that's where it was coming from. That's why that house was so bad they had to tear it down. It was that nasty. Okay. And that wasn't kids that was abandoned. That was just trifling people living there. Whole nother story. But anyway, so yeah, the people in the vicinity, that part of the village failed. Okay. Let's talk about the person renting the house, the landlord. Now, as you know, there are laws in the books that pretty much say if you are a landlord of a property, you should be doing some type of semi or yearly inspection of the house or the property to make sure everything is in proper working order, that they ain't tore up the property, that type of stuff. What happened to all of that? Okay. 4+ years, ain't nobody came to see about the house, to see what the hell going on inside the house, to see that the plumbing wasn't working and the toilet was broken, all of that. Where was this person? The only way we even know that this even went on and ain't still going on to this day is because that person finally, after months of not getting paid for renting the property, finally then sought out the mother, and when they couldn't find them, did a wellness check, and this is how we find out about the kids. Why did it have to take all of that for us to know that this was going on with these children? So yeah, that person who is the landlord, that part of the village failed the kids, okay? Let's talk about the school. These kids were supposed to be in somebody's school at 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13. Now understand, if this happened during the pandemic, we all know what happened there, okay? They got lost in the sauce on that. But once school started back, didn't nobody inquire, okay, well, what happened to these kids? Did they move? Did something happen to them? Did they not make it through the pandemic? What happened with all of that? There is some explanation that we do get offered. So, particularly, Rod, if you are watching this part of the show, I definitely want you to check out the following videos where we get a little bit more explanation as to what has transpired. Let's play this one first.
At 5, we brought you new information about the kids rescued from horrible conditions. The Oakland County Sheriff saying those children stayed inside a Pontiac home for years, except for one of them who went outside twice because he said he wanted to feel the grass. Well, tonight we're also learning how the community has been responding to this situation. Victor Williams is live with a look at how a lot of people have stepped in to help this family. Victor?
Hey there, Kimberly. A lot of people have stepped up indeed. What you're seeing is really just a fraction of what's been donated, and it's only the beginning.
We put on there that we needed clothing, and this is just a tiny sample of what we've received.
Sheriff Mike Bouchard on the help that's being given to the...
Now, what we're seeing is the village stepping up to help out in these children's time of need, okay? Since the story has broke, and this has become a national story, mind you, donations from not only the Oakland County, but the surrounding areas, Southeast Michigan, and other places across the country have come in with many donations of household goods, sanitary stuff, clothes, and what have you to help these children. That part, the village has gotten right. They've seen the problem. They're helping to correct the problem. Because keep in mind, mother, father, not in this picture right now. Grandparents, apparently that's where the kids are staying now with the grandparents. Again, not quite sure where they play in this part of the scenario, where their part in the village played in this, whether they failed those kids in not knowing their true whereabouts, or if they were being lied to the point where they weren't as concerned as they should have been, don't know. But apparently that is where the children are staying now, with them, and they are receiving these donations from across the country. All right, got another comment here. Road is saying, I love that the judge gave the mother a $250 million bond. Let me explain that right quick, Ro. The reason why the bond was $250 million was because that was the biggest bond she could have given her under the circumstance. She said, in an ideal world, a person like this did not deserve a bond, but what she is being accused of is not a point where you can give that person no bond. If she had, for instance, killed one of the kids, or there was some type of sexual misconduct, something like that, then that would have been under her jurisdiction to be able to give her no bond and keep her in that way. But 250 million was the biggest bond she could give her, and the cash only bonds, because of course, in order for her to get out, she would have to come up with $250 million. And needless to say, if she had $250 million to get herself out with, there'd be a whole nother level of anger altogether. Because ain't no way in hell you got $250 million and your kids living in filth. Hell, if you got $250,000 and they living like that, it's a problem. It's a problem anyway. All right, is there another comment here I'm missing? I don't think so. But yeah, what it really boils down to, good people, is that, oh yeah, hold on. We do have another comment here. Hold on. Wrote again, checking in. Teachers are mandated reporters, so they should have reported the kids weren't showing up to school. The teacher failed everyone around them and failed them. So yeah, that goes back to who failed in terms of the village. Now, I was thinking that too, Rod. I was thinking a few things that you not only thought today, but you also thought in your podcast. But then I ran upon this part of the story, and we definitely should play this so that we are fairly discussing this. This is basically a story about the report that was given by the Oakland County Sheriff in regards to this whole scenario. This actually explains quite a few questions that me, you, and many of the people in the audience had in regards to this story. So let's play this and then continue the discussion.
The 3 children in Michigan now making national headlines. If you haven't heard, there was horrific abusive conditions that they've lived in for years. This is what the Oakland County Sheriff's deputies are saying. So the sheriff, Michael Bouchard, showing images of the home they were living in alone. The sheriff says the 3 children, ages 12, 13, and 15, were abandoned by their mother back in 2020. So like 5 years ago, folks. Take a look at these images on your screen. You're looking at some of the deplorable conditions that they were living in. So according to the sheriff, she had food delivered once a week to the home, often just like a loaf of bread, we're being told. And the sheriff says the children's father was incarcerated for a portion of all of that time. But in 2022, we're told he did receive visitation rights. However, the children's mother refused. He also gave an update on the children's condition and efforts to support them now that they are out of the home. Take a listen.
They've already been seen once at McLaren. We intend to have them at a much more detailed, both physical and mental health kind of checkup, if you will. That will happen hopefully this week. When our detectives saw them at their interview at Care House, they were already making amazing progress, having had some tender love, having had some supportive care, having been put in new clothing and some basic hygiene. The one detective said that the little girl was talking quite a bit. So that's super exciting to see that happening. And as it relates to being in the house, the only one of the 3 that ever came out was the young boy, and he came out twice. Once because he wanted to feel the grass, which by itself is heartbreaking, and a second time to check the mail. So you wouldn't do this to an animal, let alone your child. So, just to hear that he came out to touch the grass is just crushing, soul crushing on so many levels. As it relates to the house, we have obviously released pictures. I'll get my technical expert up. You've already seen some of these pictures. I rolled that little mouse, but it didn't want to cooperate. So inside of the home, as I had mentioned with these pictures, trash was piled, in some places 3 and 4 foot high. Everything was covered with feces and trash. The toilet had become non-functional, and the bathtub was filled with feces. That's the kind of situation these poor kids had been living in for years, not just hours or days, for years. And so when you have the complete lack of hygiene, a complete breakdown of basic living conditions that they were subjected to, and to get a little deeper into that, detectives have narrowed down the initial abandonment they believe to be somewhere in the spring to summer of 2020. Obviously, COVID played a little part in the disconnect potentially with schools and school communications. In 2020, the mother dropped off some trash bags, gloves, and Febreze, and that was about the last thing related to hygiene. 2020, in the height of COVID. Okay. Towards the end, the children apparently were getting a loaf of bread dropped off that was intended to last 3 to 4 days. So, obviously, on so many levels, the conditions are horrendous and the situation terrible. So, what we're trying to do in the meantime, and as it relates specifically to the case, the preliminary report has been turned over to the prosecutor. We're adding some more stuff for them. They're in the process of determination. When I heard about this, I called her on the weekend and let it know it was coming, and she has her staff queued up, and they're in that process. As it relates to the kids, the first thing we wanted to do is obviously get them safe and to get them clean and get them enclosed. And I will say we have one of the most generous communities, I think, in the world. We put on there that we needed clothing, and this is just a tiny sample of what we've received. At the office of another office of ours, we have bags and bags. So we don't need any more clothing. We greatly appreciate it. The family and the kids greatly appreciate it. And so we're kind of pivoting now to financial support. And we have put up a link, if you will, to the charity Mission Oakland. And 100% of it will go to the kids. Unlike some of the traditional fundraising methodologies you see out there, they take a percentage. 100% of this will go to the kids. What I am asking is, again, our generous viewers and listeners out there and readers, we're looking for a law firm that would set up a trust fund so that we can take 100% of what we receive in donations for these kids and put it in a trust that can be administered, that can take care of maybe their medical bills, mental health visits, and if there's any overage, maybe set some money aside for their future education.
I do think it's important to note that that sheriff is trying to get them some help in the future after all of this has transpired. Of course, 5 years being on their own, looking to provide a better future for those 3 children. Now, again, you just heard the sheriff there hoping to set that trust up for these children. He's also looking to change the law to make sure no other child suffers the same abuse. Take a listen.
All of us are asking, how the heck did this happen? How did we lose 3 kids? How did they fall through the system? The community, the relatives, the schools, how did no one know? And the easiest answer we could come up with, and I put on my old legislative hat, and thank heavens we've got a person on our staff that also had worked in the legislature, and we examined the school code. And there's some gaps that we think in part allowed this to happen. And so what we're going to suggest is there needs to be some changes in state law. Right now, basically, there is no specific duty required that is triggered by certain actions. So what I mean by that is a school district, in this case, received a request for records from another school in Pontiac, but no verification the children ever moved to that school. And so at some point, when they didn't show up, they were just dropped off the enrollment of the school that sent the transcripts. So no one knew that they were nowhere. And so what we're proposing, and we're already communicating to a potential bill sponsor, is some amendments to the school code that will close that communication gap so that before a child is unenrolled, they have to obtain written confirmation that child's someplace else. That doesn't happen now.
All right. So that's that part. All right. So again, glad that I saw this particular story because it did clear up a few things, though not explaining nearly enough of how we even got here. Again, that mom is a piece of, as far as I'm concerned, my personal opinion. No love whatsoever for her. Throw the book at that heifer. Okay. We now learned that, yeah, at least for half of the time that the kids were in that scenario, the father was incarcerated. So we were wondering what happened to him. At least for half of that time, he was incarcerated. It then was said that he had requested to see the children and the mother refused. Now, unfortunately, there are many cases like this throughout the country where there are the custodial parent, in other words, the person that is taking physical custody of the children, and they are denying the other parent the right to see their children for whatever reason or rationale. Now, in this case, I don't know what played out on that end. We don't know that part of the story. Clearly, the father was incarcerated for something. We don't know what he was incarcerated for. But when he got out, it appears initially that he was trying to do the right thing and be in the lives of the kids. Initially. All right. I think we got another comment. Yes. The worst thing I have ever heard done to children. Yes, right up there with that for me, Hugh. I mean, I've heard some horrific stories over the years. This is perhaps one of the worst of them. I agree. Again, I still fought the father. You should have tried harder, bro. You should have tried harder. I'm sorry. If these are my children and I have not seen them and I'm not being allowed to see them, I'm going to court. I'm going to granny's house, uncle's house. Somebody let me see my damn kids. The mama tripping. These my kids too. I understand I went to jail, but I'm trying to do right. Let me see my mother kids. And I'm not trying to hear that the babysitters or none of that other mess that was being said. She has to be the worst parent of all time. One of them at least. The worst parents of all time. Agreed. Yeah, these kids didn't win big time in the parent lottery. Agreed, you. But yeah, the father should have definitely tried harder to see the aunts, the uncles, the grandparents. Where the Smurf were you? These explanations you were given was not sufficient for 4 and 5 years. You were supposed to have seen them kids by now, okay? Unless, of course, you have. Now, see, that's the part of the story we don't know the full answer of either. Understand, we have learned from the children, at least the children that are talking, that this is the scenario they have found themselves in. And this is what happened. Did the mother actually hit the house from time to time to see what was going on and saw what was going on, just left it like that? That makes the situation worse. If you abandoned, but you had the audacity to pop up and visit on them sometimes and see the house was like built. I mean, my whole thing is this: if you are paying the rent at that residence for years at a time, it didn't even slightly occur to you at some point to go up in there and see what the going on in that house with them kids. You hated those kids that much? You had the audacity to actually bring them food, if you want to call a loaf of bread food. Just that part alone is just. And again, those kids did not leave the inside of the house for years. I mean, they said the little girls did not even go outside at all. And the little boy only went outside twice, and one time was just to feel the grass. Do you know how crazy that sounds? It's like being in prison and not even getting outside to work out in the yard. And when you did, you just wanted to confirm that outside even existed. Now, there's other little stories that have popped up. There's a one story where they talked to one of the neighbors that lived a couple doors down and said that the kids would say hi to him every so often, and told him one day he had a nice car from out the window. Again, we've learned more about what happened, but it's still so many holes in this story that don't make any sense to how this was even remotely possible for this long a period of time. Again, those kids are truly blessed to have survived that long in those conditions. God is definitely watching over that group of young people right now. And thank God for everybody in the community that has stepped up to help those children and provide them with the basic essentials they need, because clearly the parents either aren't able or weren't able or just didn't fucking do. This can scar those poor babies for life. It ain't something that can. I'm pretty sure it has you, and it will. I don't understand what was going on with the other. Again, that part of the explanation we don't have either. Ain't no way in hell you're not gonna let me see my nieces for 4-5 years, and you're gonna tell me every single time that the babysitters are they with their father? Bullshit. Run me the number then. Let me talk to them. These my peoples. I want to see them little babies. Why is you hiding them? What you doing? And again, if they did find out, if they did know, why'd they let that slide like that? Now that you do know, let's just say that she didn't get the $250 million bond, and she got a bond to where she was able to get out and go back to wherever the hell she was until the court date. You done found out she done did this to these kids. This your sister, your sister-in-law, whatever. What's your response? I ain't gonna lie. If it was me and that was my sister and she did them kids like that, or Lord knows that was my baby mama and she did them kids like that, something wrong would have to go on. Okay, I'm gonna say that in a way to where I shouldn't get flipped, but y'all get what I'm saying. These hands, okay? These hands, okay? You get what I'm saying? Something like that would have to transpire. Somebody gonna have to get done wrongly to make me feel better. Y'all see what I'm saying without saying it? I'm sure many of y'all feel that same way. Because ain't no way on God's green earth should that have went on for that long, and there are no circumstances that don't happen. Now, like I said, in an ideal world, don't call for me to be on the jury. I can't do it. In my mind, she guilty as shit, and ain't no explanation on earth gonna explain that well enough to where I'm gonna be sympathetic to that woman or that piece of crap. That ain't no woman. That ain't no mama. She don't deserve that title. You don't do children that way. Those children did not ask to be here, okay? You had them. You had one job, you trifling up. And that job was to raise those young people to be respectable adults. How are they ever supposed to be that after how they have been treated? They are literally scarred for life. Thank God that there are people willing to give them mental help as well. But again, okay, you've gone through that as a person. Now you're an adult. Somebody wants to have children with you. How do you feel at that point? Are you even comfortable enough saying, yeah, I'm not going to have no kids because I don't want them to even think about what happened to me? I can't even fathom at 15, 13, and 12 how I would feel after having lived like that for 4 years. Okay? One day I was a normal child living a somewhat normal life. The next day I'm basically living like a freaking animal in a zoo. Surviving off bread, living in a house full of shit. It just don't make no sense. The evil that takes place in this world at times. It is so hard and hurtful for me to see and hear about. I just don't understand how people could be so wrong. It makes me just want to throw everything around me right now. I am so angry on the inside for those children and what happened to them. If I was anywhere in the vicinity of that lady right now, I could not be responsible for my actions. And I know if I feel like that, there's several of you out there that feel that same way. It's just wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. I can't even begin to truly give you the depth and feel of how angry and upset I am that happened to them. No child, no matter how good, bad, or otherwise they are as human beings, deserve what those kids got from her and the people of that village that failed them, okay? Now, yeah, I'm glad that they're going to look into the law as into how that cannot happen again in terms of not keeping up with them in terms of the school, because I did wonder that, how no school knew where the hell these kids were. I wonder about, again, the father, he's still to blame. He's still to blame because you had them kids. Whatever happened to where you got incarcerated, I'm pretty sure it was your fault. And you left them kids to fend with a woman who was not worthy of being a mother to them. That's your fault. You failed them. You failed them as a father. Okay? I almost feel like to some degree, even though that part of it wasn't your fault, because you wasn't trying to do what you needed to do to find out about them, you should be in the cell right next to her. Same bond and all. I kind of feel like that. It's messed up because it's not completely your fault, but it's enough of your fault to where I do feel like you shelter some of this blame. Because if I'm one of them children, how do I ever trust any adult again? Even the people that I live with now. I could imagine years down the road, you in a relationship with somebody and they trying to understand why you always hide toilet paper under the bed. What's up with that? Or why when we talk about getting pizza, you nut up because you lived off pizza for years. And so on and so forth. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot to unpack with that. That it's gonna take basically therapy for life to get over that 4-year span of your life, okay? It's gonna take some very understanding people, not only in your life now, later. I mean, think about it. You one of them kids, and next year you go back to school, and then one day one of the kids find out you one of them kids. You know, kids could be very cruel, particularly at that age. What if they get to bullying them and teasing them about it? And then you get the feeling like, I can't deal with this. And You know where I'm going with that. It's so much to have to contend with now for those children. Thank God they have the supplies and stuff they need. Hopefully they do get some of that financial backing that they're seeking from them. Lord knows if I had it to spare, I would contribute, but I'm barely making it myself right now, to be honest. But yeah, it's terrible. It's a terrible thing. Pray for that family. Pray for those children. Pray for the village. Pray that God have mercy on that person's soul, because they ain't nothing but a demon in my eyes. Pray that the story continues to have a better ending than what it had. Thank God them children lived to tell this tale, because that would have been so much worse if in the end we would have found those kids not with us anymore. But anyway, the village people, it is our responsibility as the village to do what we can to help other members of the village, okay? As I told somebody today, I think part of the problem is stuff like that happens in these communities, but it's primarily people that look like me and people without the pigmentation. Our people who are Hispanic and Arabic and Indian and Chinese, Japanese, Oriental, I don't think they would even come to these conclusions or deal with their children in this way. They're the way that they run their village and the things that happen within their communities, that it wouldn't have happened like this. My personal opinion. Could be wrong. May feel different about it. That's my personal opinion. Us Americans deal with stuff like this that way, primarily. Anyway, if you have thoughts about this, whether you see this now or in the rebroadcast, feel free to put them in the comments. We will read them. We will expound on them next time around. This is I Am Nighthawk podcast. Again, we've talked about how the village failed the children. Let us know your thoughts. Until then, good people, we about to head on out tomorrow. We will be on to do our sports podcast. That is the Guru Sports Session with myself and my co-host Hugh Lee. Shout out to Hugh, who's in the comments this evening. Also, again, shout out to Miss Gigo Simmons. Again, her podcast is entitled Speaking Freely with Miss Gigo. Make sure you check that out. Please like and subscribe. We appreciate it. We will have some commercials for you with that. Definitely want to shout out a couple of our other partners here in the Nighthawk Network before we head out. Let me play those commercials for you right quick, Shell. Nighthawk Network presents Pastor Sean Love. Pastor Sean Love, devoted father and husband, a residing pastor at the River Rouge Bible Assembly in River Rouge, Michigan. Join him as he gives us messages from God's Word, Bible study, and encouragement. You can find him on YouTube under Sean Love.
Hello, hello, hello. It's another glorious day, my T-Steppers, and you know what time it is. I hope you have all of your comforts together because it's time to dish tea. And you're dishing tea, darlings, with Big Meat.
Can't wait. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat. It's time to dish tea with Big Meat.
Hold up.
All right. Also want to send a shout out to So Extra LLC and the work they're doing over there. We will have some information about that and commercials for them soon. Also want to shout out Caramel Sweets, Caramel Sweets, I believe it's recalled. Person doing baked goods for folks. I definitely want to shout her out and give her some love, and we will have some information about that particular organization as well in future weeks here on the show and in the network. Again, thank you for watching. Let us know your opinions. Until next time we catch up with you, remember, please check on your village. And if something going on, don't be afraid to let it be known, because nobody should have to live like that. Nobody should be like that. Nobody who loves the children in their existence in their village should allow those parts of the village to be done the way that these young people got done. Okay, let us not fail our part of the village. Okay, that part. Till next time, y'all be safe.